Good morning, everybody, and or good evening, depending where you are. I'm very thrilled to be able to share this great exploration of how we human bodies find peace with ourselves, as we were hearing on the first day from the great Tibetan master Tsongkhapa, 14th century. The human body at peace with itself is more precious than the rarest gem. So that's one angle of vision on our process here in practice. Human body coming to peace with itself. And it's been feeling, so far as I can trust what I sense in the best of circumstances, let alone through Zoom, it's been feeling like, there is some really nice settling going on and finding peace. It's so, we're so lucky to be able to do this. We're just so lucky. In fact, as Tsongkhapa goes on to say, it's a great good fortune to be human, actually. And it's an even greater good fortune to be able to practice. And I hope we'll all remember, the many, many human beings who, for all kinds of reasons, can't practice. Their circumstances just won't allow it. And so really humble gratitude for the fact that we can do this at all is very appropriate. And in a way that just extends out to our I'm getting a weird sound, Johanna. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Actually, I can't quite hear what you're saying, Johanna.
She's frozen.
What's that?
I don't know what it is.
Can you mute everybody?
We're all muted.
Huh.
Except you and I.
And are you hearing it as well?
Yes. Okay, we're good.
Okay. Just a second, folks. Okay. So so let me just just sort of come back to this, I was just saying how lucky we are to practice, basically. Very nice. So I want to keep going with what we've been looking at, really, with the hindrances and the sort of mindful practice of working with them. But I also want to begin by just pointing out that there are various sort of different practice approaches to this kind of thing. And in some forms of practice, we really work on the cushion. We're really trying to sort of tease experience apart and really see clearly what's going on. And that's fine and valuable. And then there's another approach which is maybe less about systematically parsing out our experience. And in a certain way, you might call it kind of more organic, just sort of letting things be. And maybe that's more what happens in the Zen world, where there's this core practice of just sitting we're not really sort of trying to do anything in just sitting. We're literally just sitting, and we're going about our lives. And we're finding that having this dose of zazen, of daily sitting meditation, it's actually enough simply to be plonking ourselves down on the mat or the cushion or the chair every day for regular portions of time, and going about our lives. It's enough in the sense that we'll find somehow things just seem to get a little easier. It's not that life doesn't have all its vicissitudes, but somehow, is it that we get more aligned with them? We just start to be able to roll with things a bit more easily. And I'm saying this because that's without really necessarily doing some very kind of deliberate, careful, analysis of experience. It's just sitting, that can be enough. And so I wanted to just throw in that there are various axes, spectrums, continuums of practice, of sort of doing more deliberate, careful breaking down of experience, or manipulating experience, or very specific attentional tasks. And that's what practice consists of, versus a more trusting, kind of let it all hang out approach. I mean, not exactly let it all hang out, but like in the sitting, just sit. Don't worry too much about, should I do this, should I do that? What happens, what do I do if I feel this way? What do I do if I feel that way? Just sit. All will work itself out. That kind of attitude. So that more sort of letting things be, not interfering, not meddling, just trusting that things can work out. That attitude alone can be very, oddly, very effective in life. So bear that in mind, and we'll be exploring that more, actually, probably in the next retreat. Trust, the place of trust, and the sort of just letting go into trust. Now, next point that I want to come to is again related to the title Original Love. There's something I think is worth just expressing here, that the love side, I was talking in the first talk, I think, about how we're not talking just about relational meanings of the word love. I mean, of course we are in a sense, but not just sort of classic Hollywood sense of love, romantic connection between two people sort of thing. We're not quite meaning that with this original love. If we look at the 4 Brahma Viharas, which I have referred to already, which are these positive, affective, mental states, wholesome mental states. Actually, the 6th fold of the 8-fold path, right effort, is sometimes viewed as being about developing precisely these mental states that are positive, and diminishing the afflictive mental states, which we might regard the hindrances as among those. So moving from commonly experiencing the hindrances to more commonly experiencing these positive states of mind and heart. Just to recap what they are, these four states are loving kindness, warm disposition, towards others and self, compassion, feeling with the suffering of others, having a heart that's open to feeling, tenderness towards those who are suffering and acting accordingly. Sympathetic joy, a heart that rejoices in the flourishing of others. Sympathetic joy as others flourish. We feel good about that. And then the fourth one is equanimity. And now, this original love I'm talking about, it's certainly, it actually, we might come to know it in those first three Brahma Viharas, which are really all forms of love. Again, not that sort of, one-on-one romantic love, but broader than that. I mean, that's in there too, of course, but this is broader than that. And then that love, I think we can sort of, say, well, hold on, all of this origin love is a different matter, actually. I mean, it's not exactly different, but it's another emphasis. It's discovering that the very fabric of this moment, here, now, in all its multiplicity, in all its specificity, whether we're focusing on, one dot on a printed page, or whether our awareness is open to the sort of totality of experience now, and everything in between, just this experience of this moment, here and now, it is actually, it's a whole expression of a great no-thingness, a great sort of nothingness, but not a nothingness that is simply a void, a vacuum. It is that, but it's also infinitely creative, fertile, generative. And that's the sort of, well, can I say, a deeper sense of original love. That's the origin in original love, if you see what I mean. That right here and now, all of this that we're experiencing, this whole sort of earth as we know it, whole life as we know it, is arising. It's being given. It's an abundance that has no limit. Just here and now, just like this. And to come to know that sort of as this generative source, to somehow get closer to the fact that it's all arising out of just nothing. It relies on nothing. It has no foundation, in the words of one koan. No foundation to rely on. There's no foundation, but here it all is, dwelling nowhere. Mind comes forth. Based on nowhere, all this arises. That kind of discovery of this level of experience that we can all have here and now, this is what the original love is pointing to. Now, it manifests in all ways, in all things. And actually, when the point of this present moment awareness practice, cultivating our capacity to be with the moment as it is, to rest in the moment as it is that it's bringing us into more appreciation of the moment as it is, which is surely, it is indeed cultivating, developing those so-called Brahma Viharas, those positive, wholesome, affective states of mind and heart. It's doing that, and it's also, whether we know it or not, it's allowing this sort of original love to seep through into our awareness, kind of thing. So it's very, very, it's just so wonderful to be able to do this kind of practice. It's just such a blessing, because it's really a way of coming to appreciate what a blessing it is to have this human life. And perhaps even a little beyond that, into what it is to be experiencing this moment, what this moment is. Okay, now, still on sort of just giving ourselves a little bit more framework here and there, I want to also mention another kind of axis in sort of spiritual life, so to speak, between spiritual sort of trainings and spiritual systems that do in some way sort of rely on beliefs, or beliefs are a big part of it, and those where it's more about practice. I mean, probably all would have some of each, but generally speaking, religions set up a belief framework, and then some amount of practice happens within them, and that practice will typically be in some ways sort of liturgical, and then in some ways also how we share in the world, how we act out of the beliefs. I'm going to put forward this proposition that Zen is much more on the practice end and less on the belief side, that almost in a way we want to be letting go of beliefs more and more thoroughly, and more just resting in this moment without any belief filter. You might think that's sort of impossible, but I don't really know. I suspect it's not impossible. It might be a little difficult, but I think it, or at least might take some time. But somehow my hunch is that in this kind of practice, it's so bare bones. It's just the human being doing this thing called being still. By the way, a footnote, being still is really good. So in your sitting, see what, try a sit where the only thing you're trying to do is really be still. Honestly, I think it's enough. If your practice is nothing other than stillness, it's probably enough. Maybe we throw a koan in, or maybe we don't. Just checking, a little bit that the body really stays still. I mean, wow, try it. See what it brings about. True practice of stillness. So maybe all we're doing is just being still. You don't have to believe anything. And in the stillness, it's as if the experience of just being here now, it sort of wells up, it oozes up kind of through the soil, and like a wetland, you know, these pools of clarity just emerge, these pools of beautiful, still, reflective water, where everything's clearly seen. They just well up, and you don't have to do a thing about it. And gradually, as that happens, you know, we start to see what this is all being talking about, this thing called the way, capital W sometimes. The way is not difficult if we don't pick and choose. First line of the Shinjinmei. The way, if we're just sitting in stillness, you know, the body settles, the mind settles, the heart settles. And what that settling of the heart really means is letting go of preferences. Again, coming back to the hindrances we've been weaving, you know, they're weaving through our practice. The first is desire, the second is aversion. And if we really just sort of kind of get on top of those two, you really, in this way, don't have to worry about the other three. And if you really get on top of the first one, desire, you're almost dealing with the second one kind of automatically. Dealing with, I don't know, forget my language, but getting familiar with and allowing these preferences so thoroughly that they just dissolve. When they're so, you know, you kill them with love, so to speak. If you just love them to death, just love that liking, love that disliking. By the way, that kind of loving is different from like and dislike. It's not preference, it's just utter allowing, utter accepting, utter allowing. So all we got to do is be still, notice the arising of preferences, noticing the arising of desire, noticing the arising of aversion, and thoroughly allow them. They, I don't know whether they dissolve or they dissolve us. It doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter. This is how things are let go of in practice. And that's the way to reveal the way with a capital W. As these preferences dissolve, as we love them to death, we start to find that the love was not from us, it was from some other source. And it's that other source is showing up everywhere. It's one pervasive source. And it's not really a source because there's nothing there. You know, we're just seeing this very moment appearing, arising. And it's when you see it arising out of nothing, you know that it's sort of, it's fully manifesting. And at the same time, it's just appearances. And the way, this is the thing of utter beauty, the way, just, you know, well, it doesn't matter what it is, it can be your own computer just appearing. It's an appearance. And it's so beautiful that all this appears. And this is touching perhaps on what I was saying about, you know, with Tsongkhapa, when he likens the arising of the body to a splash of a raindrop. It's coming into, no sooner is it coming into being than it's disappearing. This is a glimpse of the way. The way is precisely that. As it's coming into being, it's disappearing. But don't think of this, please, as there's something called the way that's sort of apart from this moment. This moment is the way. So I don't know whether I'm conveying how this, what this practice, I hope I'm conveying something of what this practice is just being, sitting, just being, just letting this moment be. And yes, there's obstacles to that that'll come up. So we're calling them hindrances traditionally. But if you let them be simply what's coming up and fully allow that, they stop being hindrances. And we start to feel this intrinsic sort of loving nature coming forth in our experiences. And maybe we label them out as Brahma Viharas, as wholesome affective states. They're just coming up more and allowing them, and gradually the refraction of love through what arises through the Brahma Viharas doesn't really matter. It's showing itself, and it starts to reach us. Now, I do want to just say a little bit about this fourth Brahma Vihara, equanimity, because isn't it like, as the Shinjin Mei says, preferences dissolving. If preferences dissolve, that's equanimity. Equanimity in the face of whatever arises. I'm going to read a little paragraph on on equanimity. It's one of the four sublime states, or Brahma Viharas, which are purifying mental states capable of counteracting the defilements or poisons of greed, aversion, and ignorance. We talk about the three poisons, sometimes translated desire, aversion, delusion, greed, hate, delusion, so many translations. But upekkha, or equanimity, is the fourth of these Brahma Viharas. And actually, it's also in this sort of causal chain of the seven factors of awakening. It's the seventh of those factors. It's after develops out of samadhi in that scheme. Samadhi is the proximate cause of equanimity in that scheme. I mean, honestly, as you know, Zen is a little skeptical of gradualist schemes, because the reality of things shows that, could I say it, this original love is shot through everything. Doesn't matter what stage you're on, it's actually original love showing itself. And you only have to glimpse that, and the whole scheme sort of falls down. Schemes are ladders, are useful stairways. They're useful as practice tools, but that doesn't mean they're quite reflections of reality. But anyway, to practice equanimity is to be unwavering, or to stay neutral in the face of the eight winds, the eight worldly winds. So I wanted to just touch on these today. The eight worldly winds are gain and loss, good repute and ill repute, praise and blame, and happiness and sorrow. I have to admit, I've actually come across slightly different lists of the 8 worldly winds. I don't know which is most reliable, but I've known that somewhere in there is, pleasure and pain, which is not quite in the list I just gave you, but pleasure and pain, comfort and discomfort, gain and loss, good name, bad name, praise, blame, happiness, sorrow. I mean, imagine if we really had found a well-being that is intrinsic to this moment, it's here right now, and it's not, in a sense, it's not a special state. It's not something attained. It's more found by letting go. Imagine that there really could be a well-being that isn't buffeted about by those winds, praise and blame. The well-being's untouched. Gain and loss, sure, they happen. The well-being is untouched. Good name, recognition, acknowledgement, applause, bad name, censure and scorn, calumny, your name dragged in the mud, and the well-being is untouched. Happiness, pleasure, comfort, the well-being is untouched. Pain, sorrow, discomfort, and the well-being is untouched. I mean, wow. Imagine that. Is that possible? Maybe remotely. Well, is it possible that it's not remote? And if I keep practicing, just sitting, just dissolving, the hindrances, dissolving the 3 poisons which overlap with the hindrances, desire and aversion. They add in delusion, ignorance, misunderstanding, miscomprehension, which can be on different levels, but at root it means taking myself to be something I am not. Investing in the sense of being separate. A separate individual, an independent entity. Not recognizing the infinite permeability, the infinite interdependence, the infinite conditionality. All the causes and conditions that must be in place for this consciousness to be experiencing this moment right now. Not recognizing how dependent all of this is. And in a conditioned way, but still somehow a little recklessly believing what I think. That if all of that can be dissolved, seen through the weave, the fabric of how I construct the moment, gets thin and the light comes through it, like through an old carpet where it's really threadbare. You know, the threads are bare. It's just like that. The threads that construct this moment getting exposed, and then light comes through them of what is it beyond? Well, it's not really beyond, but what is that light? What is that boundlessness? Well, it for sure is not touched by the content of the fabric, of the weave. It's there before, it's there after, it's there all around, and it's there all through. So and it's here. Even though I said there, it's here. It's here. Okay. So that's just a word on the 8 winds. Last point for today is that it really, much as we may all have to do a lot of work to with our own suffering, it just doesn't work to only tend our own suffering because of all the above. It's all utterly interconnected, utterly interdependent, interpermeable. And so our well-being is dependent on others' well-being also. And this love, one of its most marked features is compassion. And compassion compels action. It's not just about feeling it. It compels action. So let's expand our zone of mindful, present moment awareness to include our socioeconomic system and the way it brutally oppresses brothers and sisters and others in our community. And let us take our practice into acts that help relieve that and work against that and call it out and protest it and stand, sit, whatever we do against it. Okay, so thank you for practicing, sharing your practice, gathering like this. It's powerful for all of us to be able to come together like this. And I may just close if my what's the word? If my sort of jerry-rigged brain can pull it off. I want to just close by reciting a few lines of this Shinjin-mei. Actually, I don't have to rely on my brain. I'm going to look at a sheet of paper in case. Okay, so this is first lines of the Shinjin-mei. Affirming faith in the mind-heart, or verses on the trusting heart. The great way is not difficult for those who do not pick and choose. When preferences are cast aside, the way stands clear and undisguised. But even slight distinctions made set earth and heaven far apart. If you would clearly see the truth, if you would like to clearly see the truth, discard opinions, pro and con. To flounder in dislike and like is nothing but the mind's disease, and not to see the way's deep truth disturbs the mind's essential peace. The way is perfect, like vast space, where there's no lack and no excess. Only our choice to choose and to reject prevents our seeing this simple truth. Thank you very much. End of talk.